Hey everyone, welcome back. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. How many times today have you already thought about how you'd describe something you're experiencing? Maybe you're mentally composing a social media post about your morning coffee, rehearsing a story about your commute to tell your partner later, or even just framing a minor frustration into an anecdote for a coworker. It's like we're all living our lives with a permanent narrator in our head, constantly commentating, constantly preparing to explain, to package our reality into digestible bits for public consumption. But what if that deeply ingrained habit, that relentless need to tell everyone everything, is actually the very thing holding you back from your most profound personal growth? From a genuine sense of peace, from truly meeting yourself. Today, we're diving deep into one of Carl Jung's most powerful, yet often overlooked, teachings. This isn't just an abstract psychological concept. It's a practical, almost radical guide for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the noise of modern life, seeking deeper meaning or yearning for a more authentic, an unshakable connection with who they really are. We're talking about the transformative and, frankly, unsettling power of silence. So, let's get comfortable. This is a conversation between you and me, and most importantly, a conversation I hope you'll start with yourself by the end of this. Let's begin this journey inward. Part 1. Finding Inner Peace, the Jungian Path to Spiritual Awakening. From the very first sounds we hear as a newborn, the gentle hum of a voice, the rhythmic beat of a heart, our world is defined by noise. It quickly expands to the voices of our family, the chaotic buzz of school hallways, the relentless roar of city traffic, the incessant pings of our digital devices, and loudest of all, the non-stop, often anxious, chatter of our own minds. This noise becomes the background music of our existence, so constant we often forget it's even there. But have you ever truly found a moment of pure, quiet stillness amidst all that? I'm not just talking about the absence of sound. I mean a moment where the internal commentary also stops, where you're not planning, not rehearsing, not judging. That moment isn't just a pleasant break. According to Carl Jung, it's the sacred starting point of everything, the journey to your true self, a process he masterfully termed individuation. Think about it for a second. When you immediately rush to explain an experience, what are you really doing? You're trying to package a vast, complex, often messy feeling or event into the neat, limited boxes of language. But words, for all their power, often shrink the truth. They simplify the nuanced. A feeling of profound sadness mixed with gratitude becomes just "I had a tough day." Jung believed that a person who is truly developing, truly individuating, doesn't feel the compulsive need to constantly express everything. Instead, they learn the art of absorbing life deeply, of carrying its weight and its beauty in a respectful, internal silence. It's like letting a fine wine breathe instead of gulping it down. The experience becomes richer, more complex. Let me give you a concrete example. Remember the last time you saw a truly breathtaking sunset? The kind that stops you in your tracks. What was your very first, instinctual reaction? Did you simply feel it? Did you let the colors wash over you, absorb the profound peace of the moment, feel the shift in the air? Or did you immediately feel the tug, the almost automatic urge to reach for your phone, to take a picture, to find the perfect filter and the right caption to describe it? That urge to narrate, while natural in our hyper-connected world, can suddenly pull us out of the actual, visceral experience itself. We become the documentarian of our own life instead of the living, breathing protagonist. Jung would say that inner silence is where the real magic happens. It's not an empty, barren silence. It's a fertile, creative one. It's the soil in which intuition starts to speak. When you consciously choose to stop telling your story to others, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. What rushes in to fill that space? You do. Your unfiltered fears, your secret desires, the parts of you you've been avoiding. What Jung called the shadow. This meeting isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often deeply unsettling. But it is always, without exception, transformative. This conscious encounter with the self is the absolute foundation of Jungian psychology, the revolutionary idea that the path to spiritual awakening begins not with adding more knowledge or more noise, but with the courageous, disciplined practice of quiet. Part 2. Understanding your persona. Why we feel the need to share. So, if this internal quiet is so transformative, why is the urge to share, to narrate, to broadcast so incredibly powerful? It feels as innate as breathing. Well, Jung knew it wasn't a superficial habit. He pinpointed its origin to a fundamental concept he called the persona. Think of your persona as the collection of social masks you wear. It's the you that you present at work, the competent, reliable professional. It's the you are with your parents, perhaps the responsible child. It's the curated you on social media, the adventurous, happy, successful individual. This persona isn't inherently bad. It's a necessary psychological skin that helps you navigate the social world, to fit in, to be accepted, and to get things done. It's your interface with society. But here's the critical problem, the trap we all fall into. The more we identify with this persona, the more we believe we are this mask, the more we drift away from our authentic, underlying self. We forget that backstage, behind the costume and the script, there's a real person with complexities and contradictions. And when we become disconnected from that core self, we experience a deep, psychic hunger. We feel empty and mud. To fill that void, we start to crave external validation. We become psychological vampires, feeding on likes, compliments, and replies instead of generating our own inner nourishment. Our sense of worth becomes outsourced. At this point, sharing stops being a genuine, joyful act of connection and becomes a compulsive, anxious need for reassurance. I want you to take a moment and think about your own childhood. Was your love conditional? Were you rewarded with attention and praise when you spoke up? When you performed well? When you expressed yourself in a certain way? Many of us were. We learned, on a deep, unconscious level, that expressing ourselves was the primary currency for receiving love and safety. That conditioning runs incredibly deep. So, as adults, when we feel compelled to share every detail of our lives, from a minor achievement to a personal struggle, we're often just replaying that old, survival-level program. We're standing in front of the world, like a child holding up a crayon drawing, silently pleading, "Do you see me? Am I good? Am I worthy?" But Jung warned that this outward focus leads to a kind of self-alienation, a feeling of being a fraud in your own life. The more you talk from the persona, the less you are actually connected to your true essence. The real journey home, the journey of individuation, isn't about finding your voice. It's about quieting the external noise long enough to remember the voice you already have inside. The one that speaks softly beneath all the layers of expectation and conditioning. It's about moving from what should I say to what is true for me right now. Part 3. Experience over narrative. How storytelling robs your joy. Here's a modern, almost paradoxical trap we've fallen into. We've started to live our experiences twice. Once when we actually live them, and again, often more intensely, when we craft and tell the story about them. But according to Jung, the second part often subtly robs and cheapens the first. Why is that? Because when you take a raw, personal, often ambiguous experience and turn it into a coherent story, you inevitably become an editor. You run it through a series of internal filters. Is this interesting enough? What will people think of me if I share this? How can I frame this to make me look resilient, wise, funny? Should I leave out that embarrassing part? The narrative gets shaped, trimmed, and polished by logic and the desire for social approval. In the process, the pure, unprocessed, messy truth of the moment gets lost. The experience is commodified. Let's try a quick, powerful exercise. I want you to think of a genuinely powerful memory from your life, a moment of great joy, a deep sadness, a profound failure, or a turning point. Got it? Now, think about the standard story you tell about it, either to others or even to yourself. I bet it's a relatively neat, packaged version with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It probably has a clear point or a lesson. Now, I want you to try to push past that story. Recall the actual sensory experience. What did the air feel like? What were the specific sounds? What was the unnameable feeling in your gut? What was the subtle, fleeting thought you never voice? That is the raw data of your life. That's what lives in the silence, before the story is applied. The story is the map, but the experience is the territory. And as the saying goes, the map is not the territory. Jung believed that true transformation happens inside the lived experience, not in the later retelling. In fact, explaining something can be a sophisticated defense mechanism, a way to gain control over it, to create a safe distance from its overwhelming intensity. But it's in that very intensity, that uncomfortable, silent act of sitting with the feeling without judgment or escape, where real alchemical growth occurs. The pain, fully felt, can transform into resilience. The joy, fully savored, can become a permanent wellspring of gratitude. Have you ever noticed that after you've talked about a problem excessively with different people, you sometimes feel more drained and confused than resolved? The problem might even feel bigger. That's because the talking can become a loop, keeping you spinning on the surface of the issue. You're analyzing the map instead of walking the train. The solution, the insight, often lies not in discussing it more, but in daring to be quiet with it. To feel its full weight and texture in your body without immediately trying to explain it away, rationalize it, or get reassurance. This is the practice of emotional endurance. Part 4, the journey of individuation, steps to your true self. So, what is this journey of individuation really about? It's helpful to think of it not as self-improvement in the typical sense, like building a better resume, but as self-discovery and reintegration. It's the process of becoming unique, undivided, and whole person you're inherently meant to be, by reclaiming the parts of yourself you've had to disown along the way. And the first and most courageous step on this path is the inevitable meeting with your shadow. Your shadow is everything you've been taught, by family, society, and culture, to repress and deny. It's your raw anger, your petty jealousies, your naked greed, your unacceptable selfishness. But, and this is crucial, it also contains your hidden creativity, your untapped power, your wild passion, and your primal vitality. We're terrified of it, so we use immense psychological energy to lock it away in the basement of our unconscious. Then, we project it onto others, seeing in them the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. But what if I told you that integrating your shadow is the master key to unlocking your full potential? Let's make this practical. Imagine a person who was raised to be nice at all costs. They deny they have any capacity for anger or assertiveness. That anger doesn't magically disappear. It goes underground. It leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, in constant resentment, in internal stress and illness. They are controlled by the very thing they deny. Now, imagine that same person doing the work. They acknowledge, okay, I have a capacity for anger. It's a part of my human wiring. It doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a person. By accepting its existence, they gain conscious control over it. They can then channel that fiery energy constructively to set firm boundaries, to fight for a cause they believe in, to fuel their creative work. That's shadow work in action, making the unconscious conscious. This journey inward requires intentional solitude. It requires consciously turning down the volume of the outside world, the opinions, the news feeds, the social obligations, so you can finally hear the faint signal of your own inner compass. It's not always easy or pleasant. You will encounter things about yourself that are uncomfortable. But each step, each act of self-honesty, brings a profound and lasting sense of authenticity. You gradually stop making choices based on what your persona thinks it should want to please others, and you start making choices aligned with what your whole self, including its dark corners, truly needs and desires. This shift from external reference to internal guidance is the very heart of personal transformation. Part 5. Practical shadow work, integrating your hidden self. This might all sound fascinating but abstract. So, let's get intensely practical. How do you actually do this? How do you start working with your shadow in your daily life? It's about becoming a detective of your own psyche. First, pay close, non-judgmental attention to your strong emotional reactions to other people. Jung famously said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When someone irritates you immensely, or you find yourself in a state of intense judgment, hit the pause button. Ask yourself, what is it about this person's behavior that triggers such a strong reaction in me? Is it possible that I disown that very same quality or potential within myself? If you find yourself despising someone's arrogance, could it be because you were taught never to be confident or self-assured, and you secretly resent that limitation? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming a lost part of your power. The intensity of your reaction is often a direct measure of how deeply you've repressed that trait. Journaling is a profoundly powerful tool for this, but not in the typical Dear Diary sense. Try a method called stream of consciousness writing. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Write without stopping. Don't plan it. Don't edit it. Don't worry about grammar or spelling. Let whatever is bubbling underneath the surface come up. The irrational fears, the shameful thoughts, the angry rants, the silly fantasies. This is a direct line to your unconscious, a way to listen to the whole symphony of yourself without a critic in the room. And perhaps most importantly, pay attention to your dreams. Jung saw dreams not as random nonsense, but as a direct, unfiltered telegram from the unconscious, a compensatory message from the self about what's missing in your conscious attitude. Keep a notebook and pen by your bed. The moment you wake up, before you even check your phone, write down anything you remember, images, characters, feelings, even if it's just a single, powerful emotion. You don't need to be a professional analyst to decode them. Simply hold the image in your mind and ask with curiosity, if this character or object were a part of me, what would it represent? What quality does it embody? This entire process isn't about fixing a broken self. It's about befriending your whole self. It's about moving from a stance of, I shouldn't feel this way, what's wrong with me? To one of, This is a part of me that has been in the shadows. Let me understand what it needs. This shift from self-judgment to open, compassionate curiosity is the very essence of shadow work. Part 6. Jungian Therapy Techniques for Self-Reflection. You might be wondering, this is deep stuff. How would a Jungian therapist actually guide someone through this in a clinical setting? The focus in Jungian analysis is fundamentally different from many other therapies. It's less about the linear story you tell, the case history, and infinitely more about what's happening in the cracks and silences of that story. A Jungian therapist is a detective of the unconscious. They are incredibly interested in what you don't say, the pauses, the topics you quickly skip over, the jokes you use to deflect, the things you find impossible to put into words. They look for clues in your slips of the tongue. Freudian slips are taken seriously. In your emotions that seem disproportionately large for the situation, and most importantly, in your dreams and fantasies. A cornerstone technique is active imagination. This is not mere daydreaming. It's a deliberate, conscious, and respectful dialogue with the content of the unconscious. Here's how it might work. Let's say you keep dreaming about a menacing figure, like a dark wolf. Instead of just feeling afraid, you might, in a quiet and safe space, close your eyes and intentionally imagine that wolf standing before you. You steady your own fear and then you ask it a question, not with aggression, but with curiosity. What do you represent in my life? Why have you come to me? What do you need to show me or give me? And then, the crucial part, you wait. You don't force the answers or invent them. You allow an answer to rise from the unconscious. It might be an image, a feeling, or even words. The goal is to engage with these inner figures as if they are real, because on a psychological level, they are real forces within your psyche. By engaging them, you take away their autonomous, haunting power and begin a relationship with them. The ultimate goal of these techniques isn't to find a quick fix or a pat answer. It's to build a lasting, communicative relationship with your own depths. It's to learn the symbolic, non-verbal language of your soul. When you become fluent in this language, you no longer feel the desperate need to explain your life to everyone else because you are living it with a deeper, wordless understanding that is its own reward. The validation becomes internal. Part 7. Living an Unexplained Life, the Power of Inner Validation. What does daily life actually look and feel like when you begin to make this profound shift? When you start living primarily to understand, rather than to explain, the first word that comes to mind is liberation. You feel a significant reduction in the pressure to curate your life for public consumption. A failure transforms from a public embarrassment that needs to be spun into a private, valuable lesson that contributes to your wisdom. A success becomes a personal milestone that nourishes your soul, not just a social media post that seeks external applause. Your sense of worth becomes internalized, immune to the fluctuating opinions of others. It's no longer a fluctuating stock price. It's a solid foundation. Think about the last time you did something genuinely kind or generous for someone, and you made a conscious choice to tell absolutely no one about it. There was no possibility of reward or recognition. Didn't that action feel different, more pure, more authentically yours than when you might have done it with an expectation of praise? That's the qualitative shift we're talking about. Your actions gradually start to align with your inner values, not with the external reward system. This doesn't mean you become a recluse or stop sharing with intimate partners. Quite the opposite. It means your external relationships become more authentic and less needy. You can act from a place of wholeness and abundance, not from a place of lack, where you need someone to complete you or validate your existence. You can truly listen to others because you're not just anxiously waiting for your turn to talk and prove your worth. You begin to trust your own intuition, that gut feeling, that quiet knowing. Because you spend time in silence, listening to it and learning to distinguish its voice from the noise of fear and desire. The call to stop telling everyone everything is, at its heart, an invitation to this profound freedom. It's about reclaiming your life as a sacred, personal experience, not a public performance for an imagined audience. The most important person you will ever need to explain your life to is yourself. And you might find, as Jung did, that the most truthful explanations are not made of words at all. They are felt in the quiet, trusting, and courageous heart. So, here's my challenge for you this week. It's a simple but potent experiment in silence. You don't need to go on a retreat or meditate for hours. The next time something meaningful happens is small victory, a moment of beauty, a disappointment. Anything that would normally trigger that automatic "I have to share this feeling. I want you to." Press pause just for an hour, or if you're feeling brave, for an entire day. Don't post it. Don't text your friend group about it. Don't turn it into a story. Just be with the experience, fully and completely. Feel it in your body. Notice the thoughts and emotions that rise when you don't immediately reach for your phone to dissipate the energy. See what you learn about yourself when the only audience is you. You might be surprised by the depth and clarity that emerges from the quiet. This small act is the practical, daily first step on the Jungian path. It's a step toward genuine inner peace, toward a real spiritual awakening, and toward the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with your own true, messy, beautiful, and whole self. If this conversation about Carl Jung's teachings and your own personal growth resonated with you, if you are ready for more content that helps you live a deeper, more examined and authentic life, then please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button if you found this helpful. It truly helps us reach others who need this message. And if you want to go deeper and directly support us in creating more content like this, consider joining our community with the join button. Thank you for watching, for your courage to listen, and for the even greater courage it takes to embrace the quiet. I'll see you in the next video.